Limited, a border security consultancy. He recently appeared before the Commons Home Affairs Committee and told them he could not see an immediate end to the crisis in the Channel. I'm very pleased to say that Tony Smith joins me live right now. Tony, good morning.
Good morning, Nigel.
So there I was, innocently out there in the middle of the Channel fishing the other day, and what I saw, Tony, confirmed rumours that I'd been picking up, and it made me very, very angry, because what I saw was a French naval vessel shadowing a small inflatable dinghy out of French waters, just straight over into British waters, and I then watched Border Force driving up, picking up the migrants, and the skipper of the Border Force vessel saying to the French Navy, "Thank you for your assistance." And I couldn't work out, Tony, what made me angrier. Was it that the French, despite the 60 million quid we've spent and given them to prevent this from happening, was it the fact that they were behaving like this, or was it complicity of our own Border Force? And I really, I want to know from you as a former boss, how long has this been going on?
Yeah, Nigel, I saw your report and also, subsequent reports on Sky News about this phenomenon, which I have to say I wasn't aware of that, Nigel. Until
how do you feel about it, Tony?
Well, I think your listeners need to understand a couple of things, Nigel, if I may. I mean, firstly, there's only so much the UK government can do unilaterally on this. The laws of the seas are hugely, hugely complicated. And what we need, which is what I've been advocating from day one, is a new bilateral agreement with France. Now, we already have several bilateral agreements with France, going from Sangatte to Canterbury to Sandhurst. And that, Nigel, is what allows us to check passports, to check lorries, to check vehicles on the French side in Calais. And believe me, if we hadn't been doing that for the last 15 years, things would have been disastrous on the
I get that.
So the smugglers have adapted their tactics. And when I first heard this, and I spoke to you about it at the time, I honestly thought it was only a flash in the pan. Those are really, as you know, tricky waterways, busy shipping lanes, currents, etc. We did not see this as a threat in my time or even for some time after. But it is now becoming a new normal. And so unless we can get that new agreement in place. And the other point, Nigel, is, the Dublin Convention is the safe third country, a framework, as you know, that exists within the EU for who's going to deal with an asylum claim. Now, we're leaving the EU, as you know better than anybody else. We're leaving the EU. So what will be the new normal fourth, say third? And a safe third country agreements work all over the world, where you can instantly, regardless of where people are picked up, if you have a safe third country agreement, once you've established people are safe and well, they would be returned instantly to the point of disembarkation. We don't have that, Nigel, and that's why I think you're seeing what you're seeing.
Tony, I completely understand the need to be fully free of EU rules. That'll make our lives easier. But I return to my question. Because when I asked the Home Office why it was acceptable, after all this money we've given them, for French naval vessels to pick up these ribs, often not far from the French coast, and escort them all the way across to the midpoint in the Channel, the Home Office response was that these migrants don't want to return to France, so it's too difficult for the French Navy to... I mean, if the French Navy can't deal with a rib with 10 or 20 migrants on, what is the point of them?
Yes, and again, you highlight a really serious problem about interdiction on the high seas. And so another thing I've been calling for is that we do need to look at capabilities for interdiction on the high seas. It's a very different set of affairs, Nigel, to bring people on board who are compliant and are happy to board your vessel. You know you were out there. But if you see people deliberately resisting any desire, particularly with women and children in very small dinghies, say, well, I'm not coming aboard, then what are you going to do? I mean, people could end up in the sea, there could be drownings, and there will be huge inquiries. So I think the top priority for us and the French is to preserve life and limb. The difficulty we have is that the migrants themselves are being told by the smugglers do resist any attempt by any French vessel to pick you up, because then you will be brought back here. What you need to do is keep going. They won't do it because they're scared to for health and safety reasons. They're scared to bring you on board. But we do know once you get to a British vessel, they will pick you up. But the ultimate point, Nigel, is that when we do pick them up, because of what I said earlier about the jurisdictions, they are within our jurisdiction. We have no choice but to return them to France. And so what we need is this agreement to be a term. And also we do need to look at things going on in Australia. They've got lots of experiences. US Border Patrol, huge amount of learning from other countries. I did some of this when I was doing the Olympic border security down in Portsmouth, where we had the police, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Border Force, all testing scenarios. Now, I know it's security rather than migrant smuggling, but the same principle applies. And I really think we do need to look at what our own capability is and take in learning from some of these that have dealt with this before, much, much greater pressures than we've got here so far. But I am really worried about it, Nigel. Yes, of course I am.
Yeah, well, I've picked up some rumours in the last 24 hours that we may see some change of tactics from Border Force in the English Channel this week, and I certainly hope so. Tony, as ever, thank you for joining us. And huge pressure now. Priti Patel coming under huge pressure to do something about this. A lot of Tory MPs not happy. Very large numbers of people in the country furious about what's going on. And yet, you'll never see that on the BBC Evening News. Oh, good Lord, no, that's all far too difficult.
We will make America great again.